Through interviews from London to Los Angeles, I hope this podcast will inspire you to embrace your wild side. To keep up with my wild adventures, follow me at susielindow.com. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Enjoy the show.
So my name is Marc Azoulay. I'm a psychoanalyst in Boulder, Colorado. I've been doing that for about 5 years or so now. Before that, I worked in the prison system. And I help primarily men that struggle with aggression and masculinity. So that's what I do kind of for trade. But this podcast is about the wild side. So I'm going to talk about what I do for fun. You wanted me to talk about the definition of wild?
Yes, tell me your definition of wild.
Yeah, okay, so we'll try to do it from an analytic perspective. I think wild is really interesting because it's the sense of like play and a sense of like reckless abandon, right?
Love that.
You know, this idea of like throwing yourself into a moment and allowing the moment to really like permeate you and to be there, you know? So that's something that I learned through my recovery. So it's something for you guys. I'm in recovery, which means I'm sober. I don't do any drugs. And I had a history of doing a ton of drugs and doing a ton of dumb shit with that. We're going to talk about the recovery part. Although maybe in a future podcast we can talk about all the drug stuff.
Okay, very cool.
But yeah, when I was, you know, some people use things like drugs and alcohol to feel wild, right? When you ask people, I'm sure you may have had the experience of like, oh, what's a wild story? And then it's about like, oh, this one time I really got super drunk or I got really high. And then here's, you know, the crazy hijinks that ensued. Mm-hmm. And the theory behind that is it's because when you take substances, they permeate you. Like you feel something or you feel something different than your normal self. So I had to learn how to do that sober. So I'm going to kind of tell that story.
Very cool.
Yeah. I guess I got sober after an overdose in college. And one of the things that I learned after getting through early recovery and like getting my life together was that I couldn't get laid. I didn't. It was real bad. I know. Because
it's a relaxing thing, or you know, letting yourself go and meet people, I guess, is harder sometimes for people.
100%. I mean, I'm like, historically, I've done a lot of work, but for most of my life, I was a very, very shy person. So like, you know, when I was a kid, I couldn't even like buy something from a store, right? Like, I couldn't even do like a scripted interaction. And I was very shut down. I was very just like kind of sunken in. You know, there's reasons for that. But, you know, that being said, I didn't know how to talk to anybody, right? Let alone women, which was like at the time when I was like 18, 19 years old, that's like, you know, the hardest thing in the world is like talk to a girl. So I had kind of solved that problem by drugs and alcohol because my mating strategy was like get like as effed up as possible, go where women are, and then like roll the dice. And like, you know, sometimes I come home with somebody, sometimes I wouldn't, you know, I was usually like either blacked out or kind of in a haze anyway. So I didn't really know what I was going to get.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean,
that's terrible. You know that. No.
It's super bad. Yeah, I know it's super bad. I think it's also really common for college age people. So yeah, I just come up with whatever. So sometimes they turn to girlfriends, sometimes it'd be one night stands, like who knows, right? So that was the old mating strategy.
Right.
And when I got sober, that mating strategy was no longer viable. So I would be, you know, at bars or at concerts or at shows or, you know, in the world, and I would try to talk to women, and it would be like I'm a teenager again. Like my voice would be cracking. I wouldn't know what to say. It'd be like, hi.
Oh no! And this is because you're sober now, and you've renounced that life, right?
Right. Yeah. Because I'm sober now, and all the old social anxiety problems are just back, right? Like I never actually dealt with them. I just like got drunk instead, right?
Yeah.
So all my old confidence problems, my insecurities, like everything was just back. It's like I was 14 again.
Oh no.
Right. So I'm like, you know, like your shirt is nice. Like you like toast. You know, like didn't like no idea like what to say. God. You know. Like the smallest amount of rejection, like, you know, if the person would break eye contact with me, right? Or like, you know, change the topic, I would just like, my poor little heart would just be shattered.
Oh no.
She hates me.
Oh no. And here's that squeaky voice again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Squeaky voice. Like, I mean, that's like my childhood voice, you know, like would just keep coming back. And I wasn't able to like make anything happen for like years.
Oh no.
And I, you know, ended up kind of like, you know, withdrawing a little bit, not really going out, like kind of, you know, when I would go out hanging out only with my friends, which kind of sucks for recovery, right? Because, you know, something that I tell the clients I work with now and something that I kind of keep in my own mind is like, you know, I didn't get sober to hate my life,
Right.
Right? Like, I already hated my life, and at least I was high. So, like, there was a benefit there.
Right.
If I'm going to be...
escape.
An escape, right? Like, if I'm sober, I'm committing to enjoying my life, right? And bringing things like wildness, bringing things like play into my life, bringing things like enjoyment, nurturance, cultivation into my life. Because, if I'm going to give up numbing, I got to make the life worth living. So I started doing dating coaching.
Dating coaching
In LA, which is actually where I met like a lot of my friends. Yeah, it's because I was a therapist here, right? So like I didn't want to do dating coaching here because it's just Boulder's a small town, and there's like I didn't want to run into people that would be my clients in the future, or run into people that were like colleagues or whatever, or people I knew from school. So I'd fly to LA. I actually still do this. I don't do the coaching anymore, but I still fly to LA and hang out with my friends. I'd fly like 3 or 4 times a year. And I would take these workshops about how to date people. And this was some of the craziest days of my life because it's all in field. So like, it's not like you're sitting in a seminar and they're talking to you. It's like you go to a club with a group of like 12 dudes and there's like a coach, and they like throw you at women and they're like, go talk to her. And then they like watch you, right? And they like critique you.
Oh my gosh, in a bar.
In a bar, or like in a club, or anywhere, like anywhere social, right? Like sometimes you go to like farmers markets, or you go to like festivals, like
Grocery
whatever,
store,
right?
Yeah.
like wherever there are women, where there's like a large concentration of women, and there's like a crowd. Because you can just be a crowd, so you can kind of like, it's not so obvious that it's like 15 dudes in a circle, right? So we would do that, and we would just practice like over and over and over again. And there was like a bunch of really fun activities, really scary activities that, helped to kind of generate conversation, because a lot of mistakes that men make, maybe you've experienced this in your dating life, where it's like a dude will go up to a woman and they'll say like, hey, what brings you here? Or like, what are you all about? What's your job? Like, what do you do? And they just like do the like battery of questions. And that sucks. That's like not attractive because, especially in a place like LA where a dating scene is like very, very alive, these women are getting approached all the time, right? And if you're getting approached by some random dude that then makes them do the conversation, it's like, why are you talking to me?
Yeah.
So we had to learn essentially improv skills. Because the solution to that is like, can you go up to a woman and just start talking, right? Just start talking for like a minute, 2 minutes. And the idea is learning a way to, build familiarity, learning a way to like, tell her about yourself, but not really counting on her to do anything, right? Like letting her kind of experience you and know who you are, so that then she can choose if she wants to, engage or not engage. So one of the fun activities that we used to do, I still do this with my friends, it's fun, and I do with my coaching clients actually, is I have people talk to the back of my head. Right.
Oh, it's easier without the eye contact.
Yeah. So level 1 is like talk to the back of the head, right? And you can do it for 1 minute, then 3 minutes, then 5 minutes. And it's like, can you just spin a story, right? Can you like out of nothing just like generate conversation, right? Level 2 is with eye contact but no expression. So that makes it harder because our faces are kind of attuning to see like, okay, like is this working?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. If I was deadpan right now, you'd probably be dying inside somewhere, right?
Yeah. Luckily I have this training. So
exactly.
So I'll be able to power through. But like it creates a sense of rejection when someone's not like responding to you, right? Which is like, for better or for worse, that's what happens a lot, in the field, as they say. Because oftentimes if you're talking to someone at a bar, they're kind of like surprised that you're there. So it kind of takes them like at least 30 seconds, a minute to actually like lock into you. Right? Like you'll be talking and they'll kind of be like, either talking to a friend or they'll be, kind of looking around or like with their drink. And then it takes a while to, kind of hook them or get like an actual conversation going. So you have to be okay with like the deadpan, right?
Right.
So you can do that for 1, 3, and 5 minutes. And then the final one is you do it and the person acts blasé and dismissive. So the person actively like cuts you down.
Yeah.
Right. They'll say
like,
things
beat
like,
it, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, that's not interesting. Or like, well, why would you care about that?
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, that's not really my style, And then you have to learn how to like adapt and change and move, So that was just one of many exercises that we did. But
oh my gosh, in LA of all places.
yeah, well, it's a huge city.
It makes sense though, because there's so many people. You can just feel like it doesn't matter, I'll never see them again, which is kind of a part of that release and being yourself sort of thing.
Totally, right. And that was especially true for me because I'm from Colorado. So it's like, I'm definitely never going to see these people again.
Right.
And LA, I mean, there's so many, not only there's so many different districts, there's so many different places to go within the districts.
Uh-huh.
So like, and some of these scenarios did happen. Worst case scenario, like I get a drink thrown in my face, right? Or like, some boyfriend wants to like beat me up. I can just leave and go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
And just like start over.
So were there any of those experiences when you were out that are more memorable, when you had to do it for the first time?
Oh, I mean, so many. I mean, like in the beginning, it's literally nothing but rejection.
Oh my
right?
God.
It's just like rejection after rejection after rejection, which I think is good. I mean, it was hard, but luckily, like, I'm with like my other bros and I'm with like the coach.
Uh-huh.
So there's kind of like, a safety in there. You can go back and laugh it off, or you can be like, oh, can you believe this guy? Blah, blah, blah,
Uh-huh.
There's like some kind of insulation to the rejection. If doing it alone is, I don't know how someone would do that. Because there were definitely like many times where I was just like crushed. And luckily, like my other teammates were like, dude, it's okay. Like, it's fine. You go talk to somebody else. So a lot of those, I mean, one of the other activities, which is super funny. It's try to get rejected as fast as possible.
And get it over with.
Yeah.
So you can move on. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So the idea is like just get used to it.
Get through okay.
Yeah.
Build up your callus.
Yeah, exactly. Like build up your callus and build up like the idea to like not take yourself seriously. Right? And what's funny about this kind of activity is that if you fail, right? If you fail the activity, you get accepted.
Oh, how funny.
So
yeah, exactly. So that's, I can see that.
Yeah, failure actually like works. Failure's fine. So we go out there and we talk to people and we try to say like the most ridiculous things possible, right? Or just be like super awkward, or just create like a ton of awkward silence. And the idea was to kind of like desensitize ourselves to the worst case scenario, which is honestly, I mean, it's, people aren't really that violent or anything. So the worst case scenario is the person just walks away, right? Like it's very rare to get like hit or to get like, thrown out or to get like publicly shamed. Usually people are just like, whatever, dude. And just like walk
oh my
away.
Gosh.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of experiences of rejection. And, another principle of this thing, which I think, comes back to this idea of being wild, is self-amusement. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think this is something I carry into all aspects of my life. Right. Not so much in therapy. I can't get away with it too much, although I do a little bit of this, which is the idea of in any conversation, in any interaction, you need to be having fun. Mm-hmm. Like it needs to be enjoyable for you. And I found that, if it's enjoyable for me, my fun and my enjoyment will actually like transmit to the other person. Like it's actually contagious, right? Like if there's someone else having fun, the other person's like, oh, cool. Like I want to have fun too. Like let's just like get on this bandwagon and like, play together.
Yeah. It's a enthusiasm is contagious thing. Yeah.
Totally. Right. Mm-hmm. And like play is contagious and people just want to like let go and be wild a little bit. Right. And not take it so seriously. Mm-hmm. There's so many conversations where like both people are really keeping their cards like close to their chest, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're not really sharing anything, like they're not really like emoting, they're not really like, they're not opening up.
It's too hard to connect then.
Yeah. It's almost impossible to connect, right? Because like the wavelength is just like a flat line, of like no one's taking that risk to like jump. Mm-hmm. Right? So the conversation stays just like kind of very surface or just like very dead. And it just becomes a conversation about tension and fear.
Oh no!
Right, and like not about fun, right?
Right, or very one-sided.
Yeah, or very very one-sided, where the person's just like overwhelmed, or like I'm just gonna sit here and just like nod until this person like goes away.
No. Do you use body language? I mean, do you watch for body language then, and all of that, or do you teach that as a skill? Because that's really telling, I find.
Yeah, body language is huge. Uh-huh. Most of it, and this is going to be male centered because that's what I learned. There are also female versions of these workshops. I just didn't take them. But for male body language, a lot of it is actually around posture. Is kind of what we learned, and around like solidity and stability. So for instance, like if I'm a dude trying to look calm and I'm like twiddling my hands, right? Or like I'm like pulling on my ear, or I'm like biting my nails, that communicates something to the people I'm trying to date, right? It communicates that like I'm not comfortable being there, that like I'm not comfortable in my own skin, maybe I'm a little insecure, and people pick that up, right? They pick up kind of those like tics and those habits. Right. Similarly, like if guys tend to be, it doesn't matter like what size the guy is, right? Like if he's taller, smaller, whatever, fat or skinny. But like if they are kind of like sunken in and kind of like hiding, which you can see a lot of guys actually do this, especially in social situations because they're overwhelmed, right? Millennials, we don't know how to like talk to people, right?
Communicate through your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Like we can text all day, like, you know, emoji like a boss, but like talking, no way. So yeah, if someone's like sunken in, or they're like, I mean, they literally look afraid, right?
Cross their arms.
Yeah,
stand back, or
yeah, you know. But yeah, I mean, you can stand back and be cool.
Oh,
like you can do like
that's a guy
like,
thing.
Yeah, you can like smoke cigarettes and be like fucking dope and shit.
Yeah.
But if it's like if you're like hiding, right? Or like, you know, if you know, you'll see it a lot in social situations where a conversation ring will form. And it's really interesting, you know, as an analyst, I like to look at kind of these primal animal instincts and things like, you know, domination and ladders of like prestige status. You'll see when a conversation ring forms, like immediately, it's almost nonverbal. It is nonverbal, where there will be people like in the ring that take up a lot of space. There'll be people that are kind of like off to the side of them that are just like kind of like the cheerleaders or like the buddies. And inevitably there are people that are actually outside of the ring. They like don't quite have a space in it.
Wow.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's figuring out, I mean, ideally you want to be someone that's generating content, right? That's speaking in the ring. Secondarily, you want to be someone that's in the ring. If you're outside the ring, it actually kind of hurts you to stay there. It's better to go and form your own ring at that point. Because it kind of communicates like, again...
You're out of the loop.
Yeah.
Literally.
Literally, right? You're out of the circle, literally, right?
Yeah.
Or like you're like a low status person, right? Or you're someone that's like not that important. And like, of course, none of these things are true, right? Because everyone has value and everybody is worthwhile. But we still have this like animal sense of community, right? This animal way of looking at the world where we get these unconscious messages all the time about where people stand.
Right.
You know, like another one that's really simple is literally volume of voice, like how loud you are.
Oh no, I have a really loud voice. So what does that say about me?
No, it's good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. No, that's actually a good thing.
Okay.
Because that communicates status, right? It communicates confidence. It communicates like the ability to like take up space, right? It communicates it's like essentially like your right to be there, right? Your right to be in the conversation, in the room, whatever.
I think that has more to do in my case in the size of my lungs and the way that I project my voice. I have a low voice for a woman in general. So, you know, I think that also, it has always carried since I was a little kid. So in my case, I don't know that it had so much to do with it socially as it does with it physically just being sort of a resonating, you know, voice. So I used to get in trouble at sleepovers. Let's just put it that way.
But that's great because you got noticed.
Yeah, right.
Right. And that's the goal in the dating scene. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're like genetically, you have a genetic advantage to this type of thing.
Yeah. Although it's the opposite can be true in the fact that, you know, if my mouth is open, I say something really stupid, everybody's going to hear it, which isn't always good either.
That's true. It'll bring in like a lot of attention.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's kind of like the thing. It's about projecting confidence. Is that kind of, I think was your question, right? And it's really interesting because, you know, even though a lot of this stuff for me had to be learned, right? It allowed me to be wild. It allowed me to actually like be in the environment, right? So one thing I really liked about this dating coaching is that you have to be sober during it. So for me in early recovery, it was kind of cool because I mean, I was like a party kid before, right? So it's cool to like still go to parties, but like have a sober group of people, right? Like we were there doing this dating thing, but it was like at the very least a dozen other people that are sober with me. So that was super helpful. And one thing that the technique says, that the coaches say a lot, is allow the environment to hype you up.
Oh, nice. Which
is like this idea of being of being wild, of like being open and letting the environment permeate you, right? And it's like, so it's like being in a club, right? Like for some people, it can be very overwhelming, right? There's like a lot of flashing lights. There's like upbeat music. There's like, it's kind of dark. you know, like there's like a lot of people moving around. There's like a crowd, you know, like it's easy to get lost, right? If you haven't been there before, you don't know where like anything is. You don't know where the bathroom is, right? It can be really overwhelming. But with training, right, and with like the intention of actually letting that environment affect you, it can actually make things fun, right? You know, over the course of, you know, a couple years of doing this, I started to feel really at home in the club environment and really at home in the crowd environment. And I've always kind of liked crowds, even though I've been shy. But to this day, I still really love crowds because it's just if I can let like the energy of people, it's getting a little hippie here, but if I let the energy of people like charge me up, I can be really wild. Because in a crowd, you can do anything.
Yeah.
You know, you're like almost anonymous. You know, I can run through a crowd and just like high five a bunch of people, you know, or I can like scream, or I can like jump, you know, I can dance, you know, I can like start conversations with anybody around me. Like for me, there's this real sense of freedom in crowds. I think a lot of it's kind of what you said before is like, if it goes wrong, I can just leave and go to another part of the crowd.
Right.
You know, it's like, it's intimate and anonymous at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. I know I don't drink personally, and so, but I was never a real big drinker to begin with. But it's funny how when I went through a health issue, breast cancer, and found out this whole relationship with alcohol, I just stopped. But, you know, people would ask me, well, how could, you know, aren't you going to drink a glass of wine or whatever? You know, and I thought, you know, I never really needed it to loosen me up to begin with, you know, to go to parties and go to bars and stuff. And so I guess I'm just one of those lucky people that can just jump into that and kind of feel the music and let go. For me, it's letting go
Totally.
of all those kind of insecurities and things, and just, you know, seeing what's happening. So anyway, so that sounds like a pretty wild step in your life that you took, and getting into all of this. So did it lead up to anything? Did you graduate from the school of, you know, getting out and meeting people? And
yeah, totally. I mean, I'm way more confident now, you know. I mean, I don't do the workshops anymore. I still go to LA and hang out with some of the people there that I met, you know, and they come out here and we've kind of created like a friend network. So I met some really good friends through that. But yeah, I mean, I'm a lot, like I said, it's also bled into other ways in my life. So, you know, as part of my job as a analyst in private practice is I have to do a ton of networking, right? So like when I'm meeting with people, I'm kind of using a lot of the same strategies, right? Now they're not so much strategies as they're just kind of part of who I am, right? I've done them enough that it just kind of become who I am, how I communicate with people. So I do that, you know, in the leadership roles that I have in companies, I do that. When I do public speaking, I use some of those strategies, you know, I do, you know, my marketing coaching with people, use some of those strategies. So it's really like permeated, it's trickled all the way down. And I got to say, like, even though there was a lot of awkwardness and pain, it definitely changed me for the better. Like, it definitely gave me a set of tools that I just straight up didn't have for most of my life.
Well, I do have to interject this. I've met you a few times now, and I have a very, very hard time believing that you were a shy kid.
I know.
Like, I really do. I mean, you have a podcast, you do all these, you know, guest speaker things, and I'm like blown away by hearing about your past, because you've got this really great positive energy that just ripples off you, you know. And I, you know, and I described you to my husband before I came over here. I said, oh yeah, he's like this super outgoing, optimistic, happy guy, you know. And here you're talking about how introverted you were, how difficult this was, and but I think we can all relate to, you know, no matter how extroverted you are, you know, nobody is confident all the time. And so I think those are good tips for anybody, you know, going into a situation and feeling socially awkward, you know, because we all go through that, where we're, you know, thinking we're in a circle and all of a sudden we're, you know, looking at the backs of everyone's head, or we're talking and we get interrupted constantly, and you're just like, okay, I get it, you know. So it's, you know, definitely relatable.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I guess it means it worked. Right?
Yes,
if I'm radiating positivity, I mean, I try to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess what I would say to you and the listeners too, you know, it's like an overarching theme, but I want to, you know, I have a soapbox, so I'll talk about it, is the idea of being willing to learn, right? The idea of like really being honest and looking at things that you want to change about yourself, and then getting help to do that, right? Like, there's this idea kind of what you alluded to of introvert extrovert, right? And the way that it's portrayed in media, not in psychology actually, but in media, of that like you're either one or the other, and then you're stuck there forever, right? And like good luck if you're an introvert, because the world rewards extroverts. Right? So it's like, okay, shit, like half the population is just like already a step down. That's not really true. I mean,
no, I think most people are ambiverts, don't you think? We slide up and down the scale depending on the situation.
Yeah.
Because there are times where I won't make a sound, other times you can't shut me up. So, my scale's probably more tipped towards the please shut her up part of the scale.
Talk a little bit louder.
Yeah. So, but do you agree about the ambivert thing?
I would agree on that, because I think introvert and extrovert is not real.
No.
Like I think it's like this false dichotomy that's created so that people can, create some kind of argument or have some kind of identity marker.
Or excuse for staying in their shell.
Exactly.
I'm this way, so I don't have to go out of my house.
Exactly, right? And I see that...
Or interact.
I see that with a ton of things. I mean, introvert extrovert is an easy one, but with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of addictions issues, like the more solid the media and kind of the zeitgeist makes things out to be, the less they make a chance of recovery, right? Because now that person's like in a box, right? And they also have a socially justified reason to stay in the box.
And if once you're labeled and you reinforce that label, then it's hard to change your label.
Totally. And if you get social benefit from being a label, you can be like, oh, I'm an introvert. And then like you get some dopamine release of like, oh yeah, people are like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Like, you're one of those. Yeah. Right? Like the personality can glom onto things like that really, really easily.
That's true.
And then get stuck in like this misery. Right? So I guess what I'd say is like, if you want to do something, you can always improve. Right? Like that's something that I wish was told more. We need to hear that like almost every day of like, there are so many resources out there, right? There are so many ways to get better. I mean, we live in like the land of abundance and plenty. I mean, like this country, this world, this year is there's so much stuff out there that is just like waiting to be consumed, right? Like the opportunities of like this generation are like, exponentially more than the ones before it. It's like insane. Like the technology and the internet in general have just like blown up the amount of knowledge that we can access. So like there's little to no excuse now around self-development and self-improvement, right? Like there is a path for everybody. And it might not be the same path as me, it might not be the same path as you, but like there is a way that you can create the life that you want, and that people can actually make meaningful change in their lives. For any, amount of time, any amount of income level, any amount of like availability, any amount of access, like there really is an answer for almost every problem now, which is like wild to think about, because that wasn't true for most of human history. No. Right? Like you kind of get dealt your lot and you just kind of stay there for the rest of your life and kind of die. But now we can really like mold ourselves and shape ourselves and kind of refine ourselves into the person that we want to be and the person we deserve to be.
Right, and I think that I can see a big change even in the last few years with it being not only acceptable to be doing these things, but actually people are searching for it. It's become a thing where self-care is what everybody should be doing. You see it everywhere, and it's promoted, and people have really responded to that. It's really different coming from your line of work. When I was growing up, that was just, nobody talked about going to an analyst or anything like that. And now it just seems like if you're not doing that, that if you've gone through some kind of trauma or you need some kind of help, then it seems like a kind of a silly way to continue your life miserable, and not seek that help that you might need. So, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's great. Do you talking about being wild?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I guess what I would say on that, I guess maybe the last thought is, I think this isn't a pitch. I guess it's just something that just might feel to work. I think working with a therapist or an analyst or a coach or doing a self-help book or joining like a group, what it does is it removes what's called resistance, which is the ways that we don't do what we want, right? So if we're like, I'm going to work out every week, and then like you don't do that, the reason why you don't do that is
what is that?
It's resistance. Yeah. I guess that's a whole other topic. I mean, I can talk about it a little bit, which is essentially, it's like, from the analytic perspective, we go super deep and weird with it. There are usually like very old childhood reasons why. You know, so one that's really common for a lot of men out there is that we don't want to surpass our fathers. There's this kind of like imprint of like not getting more, you know, more wealth, more attractiveness, more power than our father. And some fathers like hold this kind of like weird competition or jealousy with their sons, where like they always want to beat their son at basketball kind of thing, right? Or they always want to be like they always want to be the teacher, right? They always want to be like the dad. Mm-hmm. And that can get like injected into kids. And kind of unconscious, like we don't even know that we're doing it. And you can see with some of the men that I work with is once they start to get to like they can get as successful or as happy as their dad was, but when they start to push even like a little bit further, they self-sabotage all day long. Like they start cutting themselves down.
I've never heard this before. That's so interesting. Does that happen with women too and moms? I would imagine.
Yeah. So with women and moms, and again, like, you know, we're in a post-binary world now, but a lot of analytic tests are written with the binary, with men and women kind of being two separate categories. So I will talk about it from that perspective. With women, a lot of it more is about leaving the home. Mm-hmm. So what they say, it's more about like, it's like to succeed as a woman outside of the home is almost a betrayal, right? To like leave the family and to like disconnect from the family can feel like a deep betrayal. It can feel like leaving the tribe or like abandoning the mother or abandoning the family. So it's a little bit different, but it can look like a very similar thing. And that can be, you know, problematic for if there's a young woman who's from a family that drinks a lot, for instance, right? For her, getting sober might actually feel like a betrayal to the family culture and to the family norms. You might feel like an outcast, right? For kind of subverting the family, even though it's like a healthy decision, right? It might be very, very hard for her to do that because she might feel fear rejection or fear abandonment after that. So you can work with a therapist or analyst in particular to get over resistance. So then you can do self-help and self-care, right? So what I tell some of my clients and people that I work with
is... get in the gym.
Get in the gym, right? Get power hot. What I tell some of my clients is that, you know, I had to be in therapy for, honestly, about 6, 7, maybe even 8 years before I could take advice. Because, like, I have my own issues with authority. So, like, when I would read a self-help book, and they're like, hey, you should, like, go to the gym and get massages, I'd be like, yeah, fuck you, Dad. Like, I'm not going to do that, right? Like, my like, inner voice, like, couldn't metabolize it. Straight up couldn't metabolize it, right? But until I worked with my resistance, now I love those kinds of books. Yeah. Right? Now I can read something and be like, oh, yeah, I'll try that. Mm-hmm. And it's more seamless, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people have these kind of unconscious resistances that get in the way of, you know, having fun, of being successful, of allowing themselves to be wild, allowing themselves to let go, right? And it's different for everybody, but working with someone can really help you to kind of understand what those are and work through them because they're not appropriate anymore, right? That you needed them as a child. The idea is that like you create these kind of patterns to survive as a child, but as an adult, they're just not appropriate to what your goals are or what you need. Right. So you have to like deprogram them in a way.
I just thought of something that I'd heard in this last year is like when we're kids, our parents and everybody around us is telling us to be careful and to not take risk and to, you know, it's this whole thing, this big huge fear of failure is just kind of comes at us from all different angles. You know, you got to get good grades to get into college. You need, you know, you have to walk this straight and narrow path and don't, you know, fall off it because then you'll fail. And I'm thinking that as an adult, it's all about risk. Yeah. It's all about you have to, you have to do just the opposite. You have to like take chances. You have to stand out. There's a million people doing the same things we're doing. So how are you going to be different, you know, and be successful? And so it's kind of like all that training that we get when we're younger is sort of counterproductive, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge problem with my generation, with the millennial generation, is that we were incredibly coddled, right? Because we were told, like, don't take a risk, don't fail. We were also told that we're super special and we're, like, the chosen one.
Oh, yeah, all those soccer trophies and, you know.
Yeah, trophy for everyone or, like, you know, everything is amazing. Yeah. Right? Like we were insulated from failure even at things that we were, like, not that good at, right? Like, if you do, like, if you're learning the guitar and you do, like, a shitty scale, right? Like, what a responsible parent would say would be like, oh, you know, great job, and there's more to go. Like, if you practice harder, you'll get better at this, right? Instead of lying to the kid and being like, oh my God, Jimmy, that was incredible, right? Like kids and humans, we need accurate feedback. We need to know actually where we stand so that we can then tune ourselves appropriately, right, to improve and to get better. So, you that, and then we have, like you said, insulating a lot from failure. It reminds me, there's this book that I like a lot by Jordan Peterson that is 12 Rules for Life. And one of his rules is let kids skateboard.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Let them get hurt.
Let them get hurt, right? And he talks about how, he's from Canada, he talks about in Toronto, they've taken like a lot of these public parks and they installed these like giant spikes on all the rails and like on the tops of spikes and on the tops of like benches. And the idea was because kids would like jump on the bench or the rail with their skateboard and they try to grind it.
Oh, to keep them from doing that.
To keep them from doing that.
Gotcha.
And they'd put like these like little spikes, these little pricks, like, to get birds not to sit on things or to get kids not to like lean on things.
Yeah.
And he was like, what was a beautiful city park is now like a spiky gothic like danger zone.
Yeah,
right. Like, it ruined the aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
And the kids are going to find out a place to skateboard, and you're telling the kids that they can't be in this zone.
Yeah, you can't have spikes on a handrail, right? No.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I mean, that's what they end up doing. They put spikes, but you can't even use the handrail because now there's just like spikes on it, right? Yeah. But it's this idea of like, the reason is they didn't want these kids to get hurt skateboarding. It's like for your own good kind of thing. Right, which I think is what you're talking about. It's like, we make this decision for your own good.
Right.
But like, we need to learn how to fail, and we need to learn how to like have fun and let go, and we need to learn how to like, get better at stuff. If you're gonna try to grind a handrail, you're gonna have to grind it like hundreds of times before you actually get a good grind. Right? Like, you're gonna have to bust your face a couple times, and then that's how we learn. I mean,
right.
If you look at like animals, that's how they learn. They go, they explore, they mess up, they get better. I mean, that's the process.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for getting out of your comfort zone. And it's really strange because I've been doing this a lot lately since I started writing. But you get out of your comfort zone and you do something you've never done before, speaking for the first time with a microphone or whatever. Even if it's in a small room and they're just doing a recording session or whatever. And it's scary the first time. But then you get through it and you feel like, wow, I accomplished that. So now what's the next step? If you don't start taking these little mini steps, you're stuck with all these really happy little world where you never really grow. Yeah. And so don't you think that that's something too with the, getting out of your comfort and, of course it goes back to the bar and with your bros and, everybody watching as you go up and approach a young woman and see if you can get her to even look at you, like something like that. So
yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it. Like, it's really like, you need to prove yourself to yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Right, like there's a Norse myth, Odin, who's like the father, is like the Zeus figure, like the father of the gods. Right, he had to sacrifice himself to himself in order to gain the power of the runes, which is the idea of getting magic, right? Gaining the ability to do things, do spectacular things. And he had to suffer in order to get that, right? He had to sacrifice part of himself to the higher part of self. You can see this a lot in other mythologies, right? But like the gym is a really example of sacrificing yourself to yourself, where like you hurt yourself, right? Like when you lift weights, like it's fucking hard. And like it sucks, right? But like you get better, right? You get stronger, you get more coordinated, you get healthier, right? Like you have to kind of get through some of that suffering in order to get benefit down the line. And it reminds me of, with the dating coaching, to kind of tie it in, is they talk about how aspirations are not enough, right? It's like, it's one thing to like look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I am beautiful, I am loved, I am wanted, right? But if you've never like talked to a woman, your brain will be like, you're lying. Right? Like, because we learn through experience. Yeah. Right? It only takes like, kind of what you're saying, it takes a series of successful experiences to build that confidence. To be like, when you look at yourself in the mirror and say like, I am lovable, I am wanted, because I've had all these experiences that have shown me that.
That's your proof.
That's your proof. And your brain knows that, like in its cell, like in its body, right? In its cells, it's like, that you can do that, right? Like if you're doing nature stuff, right? Like only after you've summited a couple 14ers can you actually be like, yeah, I can actually do this. right? And then it's like unquestionable because you've actually done it, right? You've proven to yourself that you're strong.
And don't you think there's something, like for me, I'm motivated to do these things that make me nervous over and over again, just so that I'm not nervous, because I enjoy the process, but I hate the nerves. And so you figure, if you have enough success at what you're doing, then all that will just eventually fall away, and it'll just be your, another one of your happy places. Then you're going to have to stretch and get on stage in one of those bars and grab the microphone and maybe do some karaoke or something, and really get out of the comfort zone. So that I haven't done.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I did. Yes, I did. I just remembered. Yeah, Michael Jackson. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I mean, it's like you then get the choice if you want to escalate or you want to stay where you are, because you get tuned to something where it becomes natural. There's a type of yoga called forest yoga, and the creator, her name is Anna Forrest, and one of her principles for forest yoga is stalk your fear. Which I like that. Love that.
Stalk your fear.
Stalk your fear, and she talks about this process that she went through, which is, like kind of what you're saying, you have that nerve response or that fear response. And like what we're conditioned to do is like run away from it, right? Either through like actually running or by like numbing out with substances or changing the topic or distracting ourselves or, watching TV, like whatever, right? Like we've learned so many ways to respond to that physical sensation of fear. And what she has encouraged her students to do, and I believe that she's done it, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. What she has encouraged her students to do is when you feel that feeling, move towards it. And then just practice moving towards it. And eventually that becomes the response, right? Because like the fear response, if you think about it, it's not like good or bad, right? Like emotions don't really have morality. It's just like a body sensation. And we've been told that like that's a bad body sensation and that we should not feel that way. But that's just humans trying to make sense of our experience, right? Like over time you can recondition yourself that like when you feel nervous, instead of nervousness, it could become excitement.
I was just going to say that. The anxiety is sometimes hard to read, whether it's just that you're excited for something to happen or if you're just really nervous that you're going to fail. The feeling's the same. That gut kind of butterfly thing.
Yeah, it's still like arousal, right? And like stimulation. And then if you call it nervousness or excitement, it's just based on your like mental frame. Right, but with enough practice, you can be like, "Oh yeah, this feeling like time to go," right? Like rev me up, right? You can just like get used to that,
exactly,
and that becomes part of your process, right? And it can lead you to like maybe when you feel that, you actually get more energy, or you actually feel like you're sharpened, which is what anxiety does, or what fight or flight does. It actually sharpens you and like gives you more mental faculty, gets more blood flow into your muscles. Like it actually gets you ready to fight something.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It was a fight or flight response, right?
Right.
And that's important. It's fight or flight.
But what you don't want is the blank out moment, where it gets so extreme that your brain goes, I don't know what,
right.
dot.
Dies.
And it it goes into freeze mode. That's not so good.
Yeah, that's a little much. But even that being said, I mean, with this idea of lightness, it's like, I mean, something that I again tell my coaching clients, I'll say it here. It's like, you need to be failing like easily 30 to 40% of the time. Like you need to be having those blank out moments 34% of the time, because that means that you're actually pushing your comfort zone, right? If you're winning every single time, the arena you're like competing in, whether it be stage or business or personal, it's not like you're the big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
Right. Like if everything's too easy, you're capable of more.
That's funny you say that. I had a tennis coach that used to say that all the time. If you're winning, if you're not double faulting, you're not serving hard enough. You're not trying anything new, like you should do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because you need to know that you're like pushing above that line, and the more you push, sometimes you'll push too hard and you'll fail.
Right.
But the more you push, the more you'll move that line upwards.
Yeah.
Right? You'll trend upwards towards improvement.
Yeah, I like that. Very good. Do you have any more wild stories to tell?
I think that's it.
You do?
I mean, I have a ton of them, but I'm a little aware of time. I have someone coming in a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, that's should be good.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming and talking with us on the wild side. I'm sure everyone really enjoyed hearing all these things. I learned a lot today. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anything you would like to pitch? Do you have a podcast you'd like to tell us about? Go ahead and give us your pitch mode and tell us other places where people can find you.
Totally. I mean, the main thing is just go to my website, which is marc-azoulay.com.
Can you spell that?
Yeah, Marc is spelled M-A-R-C dash, like the hyphen, and then Azoulay is AZOULAY.com. That's my name. Everything's there. So you'll see my Facebook, you can see, the podcast, you can see the organizational part of therapy practice, coaching. I mean, it's all there. All links to everything are there. And yeah, I do. So I guess if you want to hear more of that, I do a Facebook Live broadcast every Tuesday morning for my Facebook page.
Oh, great.
So if you like that, you'll get that delivered to kind of your notifications tab. And I talk for about 10, 15 minutes about all kinds of topics. You can always submit a topic if you want me just like to freestyle on something. I got a lot of thoughts and opinions about stuff.
That's great. I know you're on Twitter too.
Yes, I'm also on Twitter at Marc Azoulay.
Are you on Instagram?
No.
Okay.
No.
You got to get out of your comfort zone, Marc.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. That's great. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciated this time we've had. And
yeah, thank you.
So thanks for sharing your wild side.
Awesome. Happy to be here.
Production and musical score of The Wild Side by Kelly Lindau. Visit my website at susielindow.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, or tweet me about the show at Susie Lindau, and I'll follow you back. If you enjoyed The Wild Side, be sure to tell your friends, family, or anyone who will listen. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks so much for listening.